What's up, everybody? This thing figured out here on the go. Right, I got this. It's held my computer for what is this now? 5 seasons of this show. I got it pretty much when we started, and it's literally just flopping around here. I don't know if this is going to make it through the show. Like this is going to fall, and then we're going to be no camera. We'll see how that goes. This is Shout, a Buffalo Bills football podcast, and guess what? We're there. We've made it. Week 1 is here. We watched the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. I got some thoughts we can get into at the end of the show on that game. But we're going to talk about the Bills and the Cardinals because they are opening things up on Sunday for the Bills, 1 p.m., Highmark Stadium. It's been a little while since the home opener was in Buffalo, but I feel like the vibes are off the charts right now in Western New York, Ryan. And on the Shout podcast, I got to say, the vibes are superb because guess who's back? Yes, sirree. Tops Friendly Markets is back as the official podcast sponsor of Shout of Buffalo Bills football podcast. And it's the quarterback blitz happening right now at Tops. Shop Tops and get your quarter back. Get 25 cents back with each purchase from participating products all throughout the store. You will already be saving on your next shopping trip. Shop from over 25 fan favorite brands and get unlimited savings when you purchase brands like Coca-Cola, Heinz, Kraft, Pepsi, Ritz, Rosina, Tostitos, and so many more. Check out your receipts and watch your totals grow. You don't miss out on getting quarters back. Watch those quarters pile up while you save like a champ. To find out more, go to topsmarkets.com. Ryan, we're so back.
We are so back. The vibes are immaculate, as you said.
There it is. Yes, that's what I was
might
saying.
have to maybe get a Tops breakfast pizza here pregame on Sunday. Who knows? It's always great, though, to have Tops back in the fold.
A lot to get into. Like I said, we're gonna preview this Bills-Cardinals game. We'll get you the latest from One Bills Drive. I was down there today. Bills practice in the stadium. It just felt like the home opener down there. We'll get you the latest on the injury report. We'll talk about Spencer Brown getting his extension. I thought that he always made sense as the in-season or preseason extension candidate. We'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But I want to start with a question, Ryan. You're looking at this Arizona Cardinals game, right, on Sunday. And, you have the Bills and the mystery around their passing game with all these new wide receivers. You're familiar with the tight ends if you're the Cardinals and you've looked at a year's worth of tape on Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. But there's some mystery there. There's great mystery on the Arizona side because despite bringing back James Conner, and we're going to talk a lot about him in a little while, the passing game, I feel like the amount of outcomes that we could see on Sunday in just the passing game alone, it's pretty big. And so where do you think, which defense is better set up to stop or contain the opposing offense? Let's start there.
I think Buffalo's defense is better set up to contain. They've played against quarterbacks a lot in the past in terms of guys that have the escapability. And the Bills have shown a knack for being disciplined, not over pursuing, not giving up those running lanes on the outside. Now, the best rushing quarterbacks find ways, the Lamar Jacksons of the world, as he's done sometimes against the Bills. But the Bills overall have contained quarterbacks like that. And with Kyler Murray, I think the game plan is going to be, apply that pressure, absolutely, but make sure that he is not allowed to get outside of that pocket or break free and rip off these big runs. And another reason I feel like the Bills are more set up than the Cardinals are some stats I'll get into here in a little bit. But in my eyes, this could be a big, big day for obviously James Cook. And the two tight ends in that room, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox.
Buy all your James Cook stock right now. This week, I would play him in daily fantasy. I would take all the overs if you play DraftKings and FanDuel. I think it's going to be a monster day for James Cook and this Buffalo Bills running game because we sit here and talk about the two passing games, and they're both good. I think whoever's able to really control the game with their run game, and the Cardinals can do it too. We're going to talk about James Conner in a second. They've done it in the past. But the Bills, I feel like that could potentially be their strength, the ability to move the chains, get consistent first downs, get some explosive runs too, where, we don't talk enough about that. And I feel like 9 or 10 plus yard runs, like those are super debilitating to defenses, especially defenses on the lower ends of things, like the Arizona Cardinals, who are going to come here on the road, coming from Arizona all the way to Buffalo, New York. I think if you get out and get the run game going, they could be really dangerous against that Cardinals front, which I don't think as a run stopping unit makes you're worried if you're Joe Brady.
No, 2,434 yards allowed last year by the Cardinals on the ground. 31st most rushing yards allowed. So they were the worst in the league in that category 1 year ago. I get it. It's a new season. Things change, but until there are some games played this year, you have to reference the previous season. They were really bad at stopping the run. That bodes very, very well for James Cook. It bodes well if you get Ty Johnson and Ray Davis in that backfield. And they really struggled too, Matt, against tight ends. 7 of the last 8 games of the season, they allowed 8 receptions or more to tight ends. Now, again, some of these teams had 2 really good tight ends. When you think of it as 4 receptions apiece, it doesn't seem like much. They allowed 80 yards or more receiving to tight ends in 4 of their last 8 games, 3 touchdowns in their final 5 games. So that bodes well for Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox. These are guys that I think in the passing game could thrive against this Cardinals defense that struggled, especially late in the year, against some really good tight ends.
Yeah, I think I'm breaking up a little bit. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
My little internet thing is up there is giving me some problems. So if I break out, we could have a little bit of frozen Parrino on this episode. We can get ourselves some solo Talbot. So stay tuned. I know you're all on the edge of your seat for that to happen. It could happen at any moment. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. We're previewing Bills versus Cardinals, which is coming up in a couple days here. John Roberts asked, do you think the Bills are going to spy Kyler Murray? I don't think that they're probably going to employ a ton of spy. I think that would be a little bit more of a reactive decision by Bobby Babich or Sean McDermott. I know Babich is calling the defense. Sean McDermott will probably make some of those 30,000-foot view decisions like that. But I think you want to see what Kyler Murray is going to do. And that's another big factor storyline going in this game. He didn't play at all in the preseason. Like, what this offense is going to look like is a little bit of a crapshoot. And so if that ends up being the case, you go into this game and he is being the I don't know who would you think that they'd even want to use as a spy, because you got Terrell Bernard in the middle of the defense that you're going to ask to be the quarterback. You have Taron Johnson that's going to have his hands full. I mean, they got a lot of different weapons, most notably Trey McBride, who is about as good as it gets when it comes to young tight ends in this league that have a chance to, really make a splash in this game. They killed. I watched week 18 last year against Seattle Seahawks. They killed them with the screenplays. And that's something that this defense has been susceptible to against in the past. So I'm going to be watching that in a big way. But who do you think that they would want to use in a spy type role? Do you think if he starts running, would they move to a little bit more 3 linebacker look?
Yeah, I would almost wonder if it'd be that latter situation between the two. I see the solo Talbot comments here. I thought for a minute we lost you, Matt. You froze up for a second on my screen and broke up, but you came back too, and I got a little nervous there. But when it comes to what the Bills could do, maybe it is the linebacker situation. It's tough when you just mentioned those weapons. Trey McBride is a player I grabbed in a ton of fantasy leagues this year. I think he's going to have a monster season. You talked about Taron Johnson. How the Bills deploy that, again, it would probably be based on if he has some early success, that being Kyler Murray getting into the open field, using his legs and hurting the Bills that way. I think early on, though, you don't employ that spy. You trust your defense to stay disciplined, to get that pressure with the front 4, maybe send blitzers, but stay disciplined on the outside. Don't over pursue. Don't allow those big chunks of yards. It's going to be a fine mix of things for this Bills team when all is said and done on Sunday. But, I just think that Kyler Murray, though, he does pose that threat. But there's a lot of threats on this team. You mentioned James Conner, great running back on that team. Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr. One thing that bodes well, though, for the Bills, Matt, Cardinals really struggled last year on the road. 2-7 on the road last season. They lost by 10 points or more. It was in 5 of those losses, and they never scored more than 16 points either. 16 points or less in all 7 losses. So really did struggle on the road. Only in those 2 wins did they score more than 16 points. They're going cross country. Week 1 game. Might not be acclimated to playing at what would be 10 a.m. their time in this matchup against Buffalo. So there are a few things that work certainly in Buffalo's advantage.
I don't know what is going on with my internet right now, and I don't know what's going on with my little holder here for my computer. Everything's a mess right now, Ryan Talbot. It's week 1. We're 2 days away from the opener. Our pets' heads are falling off. It's brutal right now out here over in Orchard Park. I'm in Amherst. It's a mess. But here's the thing. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel as well. This is such a fun game because of, for me, the unknowns of how both of these teams are going to approach the game. And we saw last night in the opener, like a lot of times in week 1, it's how you it's not really how you come out, it's how you make adjustments throughout the game. And I thought, like, for the Baltimore to be in it late and to have a chance to win on the last drive, kudos to them. But I do still think it's Kansas City's world and everybody else is just kind of living in it. I think that how the Bills come out early in this game is going to be a huge piece to it, because if they have to play from behind with what they want to be identity-wise, like establishing the line of scrimmage and having this kind of dink and dunk offense and move the ball down the field and dominate the time of possession, can you play from behind without some of the star power that you've had in previous seasons? I think, but it's a question at least.
It's a valid question. I think that Buffalo, though, especially early on in the game, even if Arizona were to score early in this matchup, they're going to stick to their game plan of probably being a little bit more balanced. And what we saw last year is if something was working, they're going to stick with it until the Cardinals can take it away. So if they come out and they say, hey, we're going to run the ball a lot against this run defense that was the worst in the league last year, and if James Cook is ripping off 6 yards, 7 yards at a clip, breaking off some bigger runs mixed in, you're getting that success from Ray Davis, even some designed runs to Josh Allen and what have you. It might quickly turn into a Dallas Cowboys type of game plan where, well, that wasn't what we were initially going to do, but we're going to stick with it. I think it would take the Cardinals being up multiple scores for the Bills to go away from whatever their game plan is in this week 1 matchup, where they would then have to become more one-dimensional and really rely on Josh Allen. Could the Cardinals do that? It's week 1. There's always going to be some bumps in the road. We've seen Buffalo come out very slow in week 1 in the past. We saw it last year, obviously. We saw it a few years ago against Pittsburgh, and that list kind of goes on and on where the Bills do get off to some slow starts for whatever reason. So it could happen. I'm not banking on it happening, but I think the Bills will stay true to their game plan at least through this first half of the game. And if they're then playing catch up in the second half, that's when they would shift gears. Am I anticipating it? No, but it could obviously happen.
What did you just answer there? Because I popped out and then popped back in.
Just repeat everything that I just said.
No. Were you answering a specific question from any?
I was answering you. I was
great.
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
That's great. Ron. I want to bring another question onto the show here from DH over on YouTube. Do you think that Keon gets some play time in this game? I think he's the 4th wide receiver according to the depth chart. I think that that's one of the biggest things that people are going to be watching for. We talked about it a couple days ago. Like, how much does he potentially play in this game? Is he somebody that's going to be out there for 60 to 80% of the snaps? I don't know, Ryan. He's been a mainstay on the first team throughout the summer. Like, he's been playing daily with Josh Allen. Like, he doesn't really come off the field in that situation unless it's like maybe, Mac Hollins. I think Mac Hollins has a little bit of ability to float around a little bit more. The Bills, despite Keon Coleman being a slot wide receiver in college at times, the Bills haven't really used him in that spot. So he's going to be mostly predominantly in an X because they have so many other guys that can play in the slot. So right. what am I expecting for this game? I think it's a little bit of a mystery. I don't know if we're going to see him a ton. It also could be one of those things where, all right, we're going to give you a couple series. Let's see how you impact the game. If you're not, and the offense is struggling to not only maybe move the ball, but score points, then maybe you pivot into another role. Because I could see a situation where it ends up being the biggest trio that gets the most time is Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, and Matt Collins in this game specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bills are going to adjust as is. One thing I really like for Keon Coleman in this game, though, is the size of the Arizona Cardinals cornerback room, Matt. They have two guys that are 6 feet tall, and everyone else is shorter than that. So if you get down in the red zone and you want to throw a 50-50 ball, I think that works greatly to the advantage of a Keon Coleman in those jump ball situations. We saw, last night some of those opportunities in the game between the Ravens and the Chiefs, where a different position, but you trust a guy like Isaiah Likely to go up and get those balls against the Chiefs defenders and come down with it. And he was a toe away from tying the game or coming within 1 point of the team on the final play of the game. With that advantage against the Cardinals cornerbacks, I could see him being a massive weapon in the red zone setting. Even down the field between the 20s at times, throw it up and see if he can win that ball. If you're putting it in a position where it's a true 50-50 in terms of it could go either way, that height advantage is going to really work in his favor.
The other thing too that I wanted to mention on Keon, I was listening to Josh Allen was on Diana Rossini's podcast over on The Athletic, and I was listening to that show, and one of the things he said about Keon is like what's impressed him the most this summer is the short area quickness that he doesn't think people give him enough credit for. Like, so when they're battling in one-on-ones, we've seen it throughout the summer. Like, he is really good at finding a way to get separation early. I think the challenge is going to be for him is like, how does he maintain that separation at the second and third level and not let guys maybe kind of catch up, especially more experienced corners. Murphy Bunting is a really good player, but depending on who covers him, I don't know if Coleman's going to draw the number one assignment from the other team's top corner every week. So that could be a really interesting situation. I also want to mention that Josh said it's going to be on me to make sure that I'm putting the ball in a position for them to go up and make a play down the field. Ryan, I know Xavier Worthy was all the talk of social media yesterday. I'm kind of predicting like maybe like a big time play, downfield play for Keon Coleman in this first game.
Wouldn't shock me. And take nothing away from Xavier Worthy scoring 2 touchdowns. But if you just look at the box score and see that, it looks like one thing. One was a blown coverage where any NFL wide receiver on any roster would have made that play in terms of scoring a touchdown. Notice I'm not saying any Joe Schmo off the street. That's different. But any NFL receiver would have made that play on the receiving touchdown. The rushing touchdown, it was impressive the way he turned on the Jets, the way he got into the end zone. I believe it was a 22-yard touchdown run. But I've also seen Mecole Hardman do that in Kansas City. I've seen some other players. This is not a new wrinkle. So, pump the brakes a little bit on that 2 touchdown performance because one of them came on blown coverage. The Bills, any player scores a touchdown in blown coverage on Sunday, yeah, fans will be thrilled, but it's not quite the same as beating a guy downfield on a 50-50 ball or those jump ball situations. As for the short area quickness for Keon Coleman, that's another thing where, it'd be great if he can continue to create that separation after the catch or down the field. But if you're in a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, that gives you another guy that you can depend on because you already know Khalil Shakir is dependable in those situations. Dalton Kincaid, even Dawson Knox in the past. Now you throw in Keon Coleman in that frame, that size is a big open target where if you can just hit him on the numbers, you feel like confident he's going to haul it in and at least move the chains where, yeah, maybe you're not getting the yak or the yards after the catch, but it's still enough to keep a drive alive. So I think he is going to be a focal point in this game. It might be a true 50-50 type of split between he and Mac Hollins. I predicted Hollins might outsnap him in these first few games, and that's okay too. But Coleman's going to be someone on the field that's going to get some looks his way.
If you want to get some looks at some deep Buffalo Bills analysis, you want to join the Shout Insider text line, 716-528-6727, 2-week free trial, $3.99 a month after that. Shout text lines brought to you by Carrie C. Byer, attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litro, located at 237 Main Street in Buffalo, New York. If you or someone you know is seriously injured, give them a call, 716-852-1234, or check out litrolaw.com. All right, next up, I want to go to the injury report because it's clean for the most part, but there was a development today. Edge rusher Dewan Smoot appeared on the injury report with a toe injury, suffered it in practice, according to Sean McDermott. I believe it was yesterday. So now his status is definitely up in the air for Sunday, questionable to play. If he can't go, Ryan, it makes things very interesting. First of all, it puts them in a good spot that they kept Casey Toohill on this 53-man roster. I do think he's more in the play for special teams if he gets a game day jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I expect that if he can't go, Dewan Smoot, look for the Bills to potentially elevate Kingsley Jonathan off of the practice squad. Real benefit that they were able to get him back into the situation because, by the way, somebody's mentioning our audio being a little bit funny. Are you on the on your usual deal? Talk real quick.
I should be on my usual deal. Let me double check though, just to make sure. It says that I'm on the usual deal. So unless something is off with my mic, maybe something got loose or a cord or something. It says that I am on the Samson right now that I'm looking at.
All right. So am I. So how am I sounding to you? Pretty good?
Yeah, you sound good to me, although my screen's weird. Like I was going to tell you after the show, I only see you on my screen right now. I know we're both on it because I saw it on Twitter. I only see you on my screen, it's not like us side by side like I usually see. So I don't know. Oh, right. Ryan is way loud. Well, maybe the mic's just too close to me. I don't know. That might be my problem.
Well, in general, Ryan has a little bit of a deeper vibe. Like he really gets going. I'll put him down to 110, but I think you're fine, Ryan. So it's not a big deal.
Right.
All right. So Kingsley Jonathan potentially gets elevated. The issue here is Javon Solomon, the rookie, do in his first NFL action. He is dealing with a oblique injury, hasn't practiced all week. He is not going to play on Sunday. So that's a little bit of a change here.
Yeah, and it's okay. I mean, a rookie coming in, what would the expectations truly be? You'd rather let him get healthy, let the oblique heal up, get to where he needs to be. But you're right. Now you add Smoot to the injury list with that late week injury, and it becomes a little bit concerned in terms of that depth. So, Kingsley Jonathan would be an interesting elevation. I'd have to look into it because he is the international pathway player. Does that affect anything? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't think so because he was on the practice squad last year.
Right. But I don't know if they didn't have they didn't use the extra spot last year with him. So I don't know. It's just interesting because it's a new development this year where every team can have it. Whereas before it was like 4 teams would pick a player like they did way back when with Christian Wade and stuff like that. So I have to look
2022 actually that he was on the practice squad. So a little bit
right
way back there.
Do have to
but we'll
look
see.
Into that,
Either way, they have some options at their disposal
right.
if they want to go, depending on the direction that they want to go here. Even if it ends up being Toohill, I think you could lean on him for 1 week against the Arizona Cardinals. But if Smoot can't play, I think it kind of challenges Bobby Babich and Sean McDermott a little bit because of what his rotational role is going to be. Like he's not only a guy that plays on the outside. Like you can move him inside on third downs. I know they like to do that with Greg Rousseau too, but I think having that versatility and that it could be a struggle to prepare for that take that out of the equation. That's a little bit of a thing. And I was just talking to Dewan Smoot on Wednesday for my Rousseau story, which will be out either later today or tomorrow. And I was asking him how he's kind of settled into things. And he's like, it's good. He said, it's finally good to be in a system that plays to my strengths. Right. And I think that's one of the conversations that Brandon Beane has with a lot of these, especially defensive linemen. I remember Mario Addison saying the same thing when he came over from Carolina. They had a couple of changes over the course of a couple of seasons. He played in a couple different schemes, couple of different defensive coordinators. And when you land back in a system where you feel comfortable, a true 4-3 defensive end where Smoot feels like he can really rush the passer, use his versatility to kind of do some stuff inside as well. Because in a 3-4, DeJuan Smoot's not big enough to be playing inside. So I think he feels like he's in a really good spot. If he's not available, a little bit of a bummer because I wanted to get a barometer on where he's at and his potential week 1 impact.
Yeah, it would be a bummer if he could not play here against Arizona. But yeah, as you mentioned, there are other options. Casey Toohill has some experience playing in the NFC. I'd have to look and see if he's played against Arizona.
He did. He played him last season.
And how they voted. Yeah. And like how he individually voted, like stat wise, was he an impact player? Did he do anything of note in that game? Where again, I've mentioned this a few times, Toohill, his rotational piece was very good with the Commanders, where once his play level was elevated after they made some trades at the deadline, he fell off significantly. So if he is that DN number 4 for the Bills on Sunday, if it is, if there's something with Jonathan that hinders their elevation, if Smoot can't go, I still think they have enough in that defensive end room to get the job done, And then on the other side, Matt, looking at the injury report, the Cardinals ruled out Xavier Weaver, up and coming wide receiver, young guy that they had high hopes for, had a really strong preseason for them. Everything I read said they might have to elevate a wide receiver from their practice squad because of their depth. So it will be interesting to see how that affects them too early on here in the season.
Toohill played 29 snaps against the Cardinals in week 1 last year, had 2 tackles, tackle for a loss, 3 tackles, a tackle for a loss in that game.
Yeah.
So nothing crazy to report. But, the other guy that we might be wanting to keep an eye on is Cameron Klein. If they can't elevate Kingsley Jonathan because of the international pathway, which I don't know why. I get it's like an additional piece, but isn't an additional piece like, I don't know. It wouldn't make a lot of sense to me if you can have him on a practice squad, but you can't elevate him, or maybe you just
right. Yeah. The only thing I could think of with that is like they are truly protected as your international pathway. Like you can't be poached. So I don't know if maybe it's something where, well, you can't keep elevating this guy, but it might just be like the 3 elevations you have to sign to the main roster type of rule, and then it could change. So you're right. I mean, I think that would maybe hinder the development of some guys if you had the opportunity to play them in a live game action if they're ready to. So I'll look into that, though.
Super interesting that he is even eligible for that because he's played games in the league. I mean, I know Effie Obata was a pathway player, and I know he was playing, I think, as early as his first season in Carolina, if I'm remembering correctly. Interesting. So we'll see and become an insider, because as soon as we find out, we'll make sure to text out to the insiders what's going on with Kingsley Jonathan and a potential call up to the main roster for Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals, 1 p.m. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you on this Friday afternoon, evening. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Where do you want to go next, Ryan?
Yeah, next, I kind of just want to see what your thoughts are in terms of your confidence level in this offense. There's so many unknowns right now, but based on everything we've seen this summer, based on what the players are saying, what are your expectations? Because this offense has come out slow in previous seasons, obviously not under Joe Brady. Brady was serving as the quarterback's coach last year when they got off to the slow start against the Jets a few years ago. For the last few years, I've had slow starts in week 1. What is your confidence level that that's not going to be the case going into this game?
So I think the thing going for the Bills is they have a bunch of different ways to win against the Cardinals offensively, right? Like, so if the run game's not going, okay, you can lean into Josh Allen. You can lean in that short passing game that worked in a lot of different ways. You have a healthy Curtis Samuel, who you've been waiting for him to get healthy for a couple of weeks. He was handpicked to add into this offense, to add a dimension that they were force feeding last year, that they just didn't have anybody on the roster to be able to do anything in that short area, like, wide receiver screen game that they were trying to do with Stephon Diggs, and it was painful every time you watched it because it's not his game. And I think we saw one play in the preseason, I know it was a limited sample size, where Curtis Samuel got the ball at the line of scrimmage, got into some space, and it was really exciting. Like, I think that's something that can happen. I think the Bills are going to try to move the ball. If they can't move the ball, they have the ultimate equalizer. I think it's absolutely insane that Lamar Jackson ran the ball 16 times in that game yesterday. It's the first game of the season, and you're putting your quarterback in a spot. I know they weren't all design runs, and most of them weren't, but still, like that, you have to be able to quell that number to bring it down a little bit. That's way too much. You're not going to be able to sustain that over the course of the season. And I don't think the Bills are going to push or break glass in case of emergency in week 1 against the Arizona Cardinals. But if things aren't going well and maybe you're not moving the ball the way that you want, you can get Allen involved in the run game, which I think is a little bit of a immediate like fixer, for the offense. So that's, to me, a couple things that I'm looking for.
Yeah, I like everything you said there. When it comes to what I'm looking for, the Bills aren't going to let all the cats out of the bag, so to speak, against a non-conference opponent. But I do think there's going to be a lot that obviously fans have not seen because you don't show anything in the preseason. Even at training camp with a lot of fans in attendance, it's a small sample size. It's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what the Bills were showing there. I think that he could come out and really get the Cardinals defense on their toes early in terms, it could be pre-snap movement. It could be the ways that they utilize a guy like Curtis Samuel, where they line him up. Some of the different formations, 11 personnel, 12 personnel, the way that they can utilize, Josh Allen too, move. Is it going to be those design runs? We've seen a lot of success there, but off of the design runs, are you going to have maybe a fake pitch to a James Cook or to one of your backs? There's so much that I anticipate from Joe Brady based on a very small sample size in Carolina, but he leans so much on that pre-snap movement, and that can really open up things for an offense, help Josh Allen at the line, Connor McGovern in terms of what they're seeing from the opposing defense. When you have that early relationship, I saw in the comments here, the confidence level is Connor McGovern ready for center. I think he is, but anything that can make life easier from diagnosing what the defense might be doing with that pre-snap motion. I just think that Brady is going to show enough in this game where fans are going to be really excited about what the potential of this unit. There's going to be some splash plays, but I also think that the fact that this is going to be a more balanced offense where in years past, it does feel like they were trying to be the Josh, not the Josh Allen show, but they were leaning too much on Josh Allen, depending on him too much, asking too much out of him, where defenses were, if they were able to have some success, it really did stymie or limit the Bills in these games that ended up being very low scoring.
Pops Mafia asking who to project the game day inactives. I think that's a fun little exercise. So we'll obviously start with Javon Solomon because he's not going to play. From there, I think I'd want to go Cole Bishop. So we got 2 right there. 3, I'm going to go with Eddie Ulofoshio.
Okay.
Then I'm going to go 4, Tylen Grable. 5, Cedric Van Pran Granger. Who do you got, Ryan? Throw a 6th and a 7th. It's tough.
The start of my list isn't much different than yours, but Ulofoshio, what made you lean that way at the linebacker position? Anything specific? Because we've talked a lot about his special teams acumen, where if he were to get a game day jersey, that's where he would contribute.
I think that's where Andreessen has kind of passed him a little bit. Like, okay. I think that, the way that Smiley talked about him in terms of his ability to play on all 4 phases and in multiple spots, I think Ulofoshio is in that bucket of guys that was hindered by the fact that he missed all of that time during the summer. And who knows, maybe he has made enough headway where he can get back and be available. But for me, he's that. And then obviously DeJuan Smoot is another guy that I think you got to think about maybe being the 6th guy if he's not available. But do they only need to do 5? It's 48, right? But they have to keep offensive linemen.
Correct.
Okay.
So that, some combination there that you said, when you just mentioned that, it perked my ears up a little bit with Ulofoshio, with Andreessen still there in the mix. Nicholas Morrow, despite being injured a lot during the summer, it makes sense for him to be active based on what he can do, his experience, things like that. So I think you're going to be very close to what Sunday's inactive list is going to look like. We had another question here in the comments from RJ, thinking of our friend out there. Confidence level in the special teams unit.
If we were going out of 10, I got to tell you, I'm putting it right now at 4. And I think I'm even being a little bit, aggressive. Like I could even dip it down a point or two because look at all three factors.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you have special teams unit that took a huge dive last year in terms of just kick and punt return coverage in general. Just the ability to give up some big plays in that area makes you a little bit uncomfortable. The obvious Tyler Bass kicking situation that we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks. I mean, I asked Sean about this during the offseason, like what gives you the confidence in Matthew Smiley? Like, and he came back and said that he is obviously confident in him, but I think this is a huge season for him. And then Sam Martin, like he's hot and cold. Like there'll be times when he's got a really nice punt, and there'll be times when he just has an absolute duck. And then, there's been times when there's been issues with the holding. So I'm not very confident in the special teams unit right now.
No, I was going to say 5, and I thought I was low. So the fact that you went there makes me realize that we're pretty much on the same page. I will say this, for the kickoff coverage, I'm not sure that the Bills are going to replicate what we saw last night, but there were just a lot of kicks in the end zone on kickoffs where the return game really wasn't much of a factor there. Obviously, punt returns is a whole nother matter because, as you mentioned, Sam Martin can be hot and cold. He can kick without that hang time, where that gives opportunities to opposing teams to get nice returns against the Bills. So I don't have a lot of confidence in the punt return coverage right now, just based on the punter himself. For the Bills, I don't know if the Cardinals are going to follow the philosophy of kicking into the end zone or not, but if they do kick it short, Codrington, we saw what he did in the preseason, but how does he handle Buffalo's swirling winds if he's out there? It's a different animal. I get the forecast, 60s. Nice. It feels like it's going to feel like a nice fall day out there, but that wind can pick up at any given time, as you know. So, and then with Tyler Bass I don't have confidence in him right now. And I know that Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott have said it and screamed it from the rooftops. We're confident in this guy. Relax, be patient. But at the same time, we've seen enough over the summer at training camp. We saw the 50-plus yarder in the preseason where he just couldn't connect and come through on those types of kicks. I think that it won't necessarily matter against a team like the Cardinals, but the few weeks after this, if he doesn't have a nice performance against Arizona, you're really worried going into the games against these playoff teams, the AFC East rival Dolphins, the Ravens after that. And for the weeks that follow, a lot of primetime games, a lot of big games for this Bills team, and they're going to need to be able to depend on the kicker, especially in some matchups that might be pretty close.
All right, let's do a player to watch. Let's do our prediction for Sunday. Let's do a little Spencer Brown, and then I want to talk about Lamar Jackson quickly before we get out of here.
Okay.
So, player to watch. I'll start it off. For me, it's James Conner. I brought him up at the beginning of the show. To me, I think that as much has been made, and rightfully so, about Harrison Jr., I think that James Conner is the most dangerous Cardinals offensive player not named Kyler Murray this Sunday. And the reason I think that is because the Cardinals seem to go as he goes. When he has big-time games, and he hasn't against the Bills. I mean, he only played the Bills twice when he was in Pittsburgh, and I think he had 60 yards between the two games. So not a lot of history there, but he's a different back. He's obviously come a long way since that time. The way that he runs, the way that he affects the game, like he's a dangerous weapon in the pass game too, which is a part where, those kinds of backs tend to really hurt the Bills defense. And, I think of a guy like Dorian Williams, who is making this start in a huge spot with Matt Milano out and, a missed tackle here or a missed tackle there, Taylor Rapp, who's got to really lead things in the back end of that thing. DeMar Hamlin with his first start at safety since that incident in Cincinnati a couple of years ago. A lot of players here where I'm a little bit hesitant to believe that they're going to go this whole game without James Conner having either a big run where he breaks a tackle. And here's another thing, Ryan. What do we think about that backup lineup of the defensive line here? Austin Johnson, who's a little bit of a question mark. Dwayne Carter, who we're very high on, but is a rookie making his first NFL pro appearance. Then you have guys like potentially Casey Toohill and maybe even a Cameron Klein or DeJuan Smoot, who might be playing at 75%. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a concern. It's something to watch. I expect James Conner to have a few nice runs in this game. I'm not saying he's going to rip off like a 56-yard touchdown or anything like that, but he's a great back. He's a guy that has sustained success for multiple years in Arizona. He was successful in Pittsburgh as well. So I anticipate him finding some success on the ground against Buffalo. But my player to watch, Matt, in this game is Rasul Douglas. I think we've already talked about the Bills getting off to a fast start in this game offensively. And if the Cardinals get down in this game, I really expect Kyler Murray to try to target his new weapon, his new toy, Marvin Harrison Jr. And as talented as I know Harrison Jr. is and will be in this league, I think Douglas against the rookie is going to be an advantageous matchup for the Bills where, he might lure Murray into a throw there. It looks like the rookie's open and jump the ball. We saw that last year in situations where he jumped routes because he showed that savviness. I can see that happening in this game. So Rasul Douglas to make an impact play or two for me. He is my guy to watch in this matchup on Sunday.
Prediction time, Ryan Talbot. I'll go first. I have the Bills winning this in what ends up being a closer game than I think a lot of people expected. I think they cover the spread, which is at 6.5. I got the Bills winning 28-21. I think they're going to control this game. I don't think they're going to get down early, although I do think it, if it happens, that's when my level of concern kind of ratchets up a little bit, especially if Kyler Murray just is vibing and feeling it and they're not able to get consistent pressure. That's going to be a problem in this game because I think that's when Kyler Murray can kind of dice you up a little bit, get into a situation where he feels good. I got 28-21. I think the defense forces a turnover or two. I think we have a big Keon Coleman play in this game and James Cook eats in a big way. Get all your James Cook stock. I started with the show with that and I'm going to keep on it.
Yeah, I have the Bills making a statement in this first game, showing that they don't necessarily need that number one wide receiver, moving the ball efficiently, scoring a lot of points. Bills 30, Cardinals 17. The Cardinals, I think it's close at halftime, but the Bills pull away in the second half.
I like that pick. I like coming out confident. Ryan Talbot and I are going to be in the house at Highmark Stadium on Sunday,
suited and booted,
side by side, suited and booted, bay. And then on Saturday, we're actually going to Joe Kroom is having an event. He's hosting Eric Wood. We're gonna pop over there around 6-ish. I think it's called Sad Boys Brewing Company. So if you're in town on Saturday and want to come out, we might even then pop over to Resurgence, where Pat Moran is doing an event. We'll see. We'll see how much I can get Ryan gallivanting around town on Saturday night. All right, Spencer Brown, the Bills, Inc. They're starting right tackle to a 4-year extension. He is now under roster control until 2028. Makes a ton of sense, Ryan. If Spencer Brown goes out there and replicates what he did last year or plays even better than he did a year ago, shows the reliability. He played 1,300 snaps last year. He was as reliable as anybody in the league. Only person on the Bills that played more snaps than Spencer Brown last year, Osiris Torrance at 1,307 to 1,304. The Bills were going to have to pay to the moon to sign him. At his size, 2 really big-time seasons, he would have hit the free agent market and potentially made a killing. So getting this deal done now, protecting yourself against that a little bit. Now you have 3 guys on this offensive line in Spencer Brown, Deion Dawkins, and Osiris Torrance locked in for the next couple of seasons, the core of your offensive line. You're in a really good spot in front of Josh Allen, and that's always been one of Brandon Beane's biggest goals.
Yeah, and you have to give Brandon Beane the benefit of the doubt. He's been ahead on some of these deals where it looks great, especially after the fact. You look at the Ed Oliver deal a year ago. You look at Spencer Brown. Brown had a great year last year. He stayed healthy. He answered a lot of questions about his game. The Bills have some guys waiting in the wings. We've talked about Ryan Van DeMark, but Van DeMark is going to be a great swing tackle for this team. He's someone that they have under, contract for another year after this year. I'll have to look into that. But what you saw to Spencer Brown, getting him locked up for a few years at a rate where you're right, they're not breaking the bank if he had repeated that performance this season. You feel good about that. You feel good about having your 2 anchors on the offensive line for the foreseeable future between Dawkins and Spencer Brown. you want those bookends for your quarterback, a guy like Josh Allen, who, he can hurt you with his arm and his legs, but if you have a stout offensive line in front of him and he has extra time to throw the ball, to scan the field, to wait for guys to get open, that's going to benefit this passing game and this offense significantly. I think they have that confidence in their tackles. They have that confidence in Osiris Torrance. And now you hope that they can, over the course of the season, get that confidence in a David Edwards and a Connor McGovern, because, potentially this could be maybe the best offensive line that Josh Allen has played with. And that's saying something. He's had some good ones, but they've either, wavered a bit in run protection or pass protection. This unit could end up, if they gel together the way I think they can, be a really good unit for Josh Allen, much better than a lot of people are anticipating.
Here's Spencer Brown, courtesy of our good buddy Josh Reed over at Channel 4, talking today at One Bills Drive about the contract extension.
It's one thing to get drafted. It's another thing to get to a second contract. There's a lot of stepping stones and learning you have to go through that, especially in younger years, and then just doing the same thing day in, day out, and hopefully it pays off and you're doing the right things, and then being in the front office, showing belief in me that I was doing the right things. And I told Bean I went from proving everybody wrong, and now I got to start proving everybody right. So I look forward to that. Good to have a clear head moving forward, knowing where you're going to be, knowing that this isn't your last season in Buffalo, and now we have a lot more to look forward to, but it's good to play with a clear head for sure.
So I think that's a big piece of it, right? Like the ability to put the uncertainty of a contract extension that you're, eyeing free agency next year. You're settled. You're here. Like Aaron Kromer's going to be your offensive line coach. Joe Brady's going to be your offensive coordinator. You think, unless the Bills absolutely, take the league by storm this year and Brady gets a head coaching job. But like the infrastructure around him is really solid. And I think that puts a young player like Brown in a good spot. I see a comment here. Now go sign Greg Rousseau. I actually think that there's no rush to re-sign Greg Rousseau if you're Brandon Beane, because really right now, if you want to get ahead of things, right, and you want to be aggressive, you're probably going to have to ink him to a deal that gets him close to $20 million per season, right? Because there's a little bit of a projection in there. He probably wants to get close to market value. He's going to, he's fine probably if he doesn't, because if he goes out and has a 10+ sack season, then he's really going to be in the driver's seat next off season. But the thing is, if he doesn't, if it's another 6-7 sack season, I think the conversation changed. I think there's a number potentially for an extension changes. And I just think with the Bills having to pinch pennies the way that they are, I think this is something, because he's under roster control for the next 2 seasons, you could slow play this one a little bit more than what Brown, and Brown was going to have to be about to be a free agent next offseason.
Yeah, first of all, with Spencer Brown, it does. It helps you clear your mind. It helps you focus, knowing you're going to be here long term. And real quick on the subject of Groot, as much as I like Greg Rousseau, he hasn't played at the level that it's a different level. It's a different position, obviously. That what we saw out of Spencer Brown. Spencer Brown was outstanding last year at right tackle. Greg Rousseau has been very, very good as a run defender. He has had flashes as a pass rusher, but he hasn't put it all together yet. If he does that this season, it will come with the Bills in terms of that contract extension. But the deal with Spencer Brown, you look at it, and if you're Christian Benford, who's played at a very high level early on in his career, you see that they take care of these guys based on Spencer Brown, and obviously a long list of other players that they've re-signed or extended, I should say, over the years. You feel good if you are, if very early on here, but Dalton Kincaid, who in a few years might be up for that monster extension. And, I'm not going to say James Cook. I don't know if the Bills will ever be in that philosophy of re-signing running backs to big contracts. We'll see. Time will tell. But core players that perform, the Bills time and time again under Brandon Beane have extended after they've developed them. So it continues to happen over and over again. So if you're one of these guys that have played at a pretty high level here for a few years, now that, what they're saying, it's not just lip service. They're going to eventually get to you and pay you your worth.
Final thought here. I want to hit on Lamar Jackson last night. And there was just a couple things about that game. Like, he was so good for the majority of that game. I mean, there were some big time plays. There were some head scratching plays. And again, I don't think it's a sustainable model to run 16 times in a game, especially against a defense like that that's going to make you pay in the open field. But he had a chance to win late in the game, and the throw to Zay Flowers that, he said after the game was not an attempt to throw to Zay Flowers, but he was looking to throw somewhere else, and it ended up just he saw him at the last second, whatever the case may be. You gotta recognize that the other play to Isaiah Likely doesn't even come into the picture because they're able to score on the play before if he's able to connect on that. The thing that bothers me the most about Lamar Jackson consistently is just like the attitude about everything. Like, saw him on the sideline, like complaining to his offensive lineman. Like, I don't mind if you're in a game and you need to like really like get your guys going. And maybe that's what he was doing. And I wasn't down there, but there's just so many times where you look at him on TV and he's like complaining or pouting, or I just can't stand that. And then after the game, he said, I still think that Isaiah Likely's play was a touchdown.
Yeah. When they were
no, actually it wasn't, because here's the rules. If your both feet aren't in bounds, then it doesn't count as a touchdown. Like, you learn that in like little loop football. I'm pretty sure. And it's stuff like that just like, if I'm just picturing Patrick Mahomes in that seat, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford. And I feel like instead of saying like that was a touchdown, I envision all four of those quarterbacks saying, I should have made that play to Flowers in the back of the end zone. This loss is on me. And
yeah,
too much of the time, it's not that from Lamar Jackson. And he's like one of the most like praised quarterbacks in the NFL, not named Patrick Mahomes, 2-time MVP. I poked a couple holes in his campaign last year where I thought he wasn't the MVP. And it's just moments like that where I feel like there's other quarterbacks in the league that make plays for their team in those moments. And a lot of times Lamar doesn't.
I thought his downfield passing was not great last night. I thought he had a lot of, he was very accurate on the short stuff. Guys were running open. He was hitting them. But late in the game, if you are the MVP, those are plays you need to make. And, you said the play, he made that play to Zay Flowers before the one to Likely, we wouldn't be here. I think Likely the play before that was open and he threw it too late and then he threw it out of bounds in a spot where he couldn't come up with it. So if you make the play before the Zay Flowers play, you're not in this situation. If you make the play to Zay Flowers, and you can argue that Zay Flowers should have sat down in the spot back there and not continue to run, but he was open and you got to find him and hit him in the numbers there and make that play. The play to Likely, he can say, I thought it was still a touchdown. The only way that's a touchdown is if Isaiah Likely is wearing white cleats, because maybe then it blends in enough where they say there's not enough for us to see. But you're right. He needs to take the loss and put it on his shoulders. I get he had, when you look at the stat line, a monster performance in terms of the overall yardage, but he had the turnover that was really bad earlier in that game. Things where, if you truly are the MVP of this league, you need to be making those plays. And he came close and he almost brought them back. And I would have loved to have seen what would have happened on that 2-point conversion that Harbaugh was calling from the sidelines when they initially called it a touchdown, because I love a game that comes down to one play like that. And it's not overtime. You don't want to give Mahomes and company a chance and you call your best play, but he didn't deliver in those spots late when they needed him the most.
Listen, everybody, if you see us on Sunday walking through the tailgates or inside the stadium, make sure you stop us and say hello. We will be out around town on Saturday night, a couple of spots, Sad Boys Brewing Company, and then potentially Resurgence Brewing Company Saturday night. It's here, Ryan. No, the wait is over. NFL regular season football, it's here.
Yeah. Cannot wait, Matt. Excited. It's finally here. Bills Mafia, we will see you out on Saturday night. We will see you on Sunday from Highmark Stadium.
And Tops is back. If you didn't hear, they are the official sponsor of Shout Out Buffalo Bills Football Podcast, and they are ready to serve fan favorites. This season, let Tops do the cooking and you'll be the MVP. Visit shop.topsmarkets.com and elevate your food game with its great selection of custom cakes, desserts, pizza, sandwiches, fresh fruit, cheese trays, fried chicken, and so much more. Save time and easily shop with the convenience of no fee pickup on all its game day deals. There are no service fees, no tips, just the best deals in town. Score great deals in time for kickoff and shop at topsmarkets.com. All right, everybody. We will see you Sunday. I had a little bit of a distraction off screen there. Yeah, why don't you come in here, honey? Say hello.
Hi.
You've been very good up there. Was today Bills Day at school?
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think the Bills are going to win on Sunday?
Yes.
They're playing the Arizona Cardinals. Do you like Cardinals?
I know what they are.
They're birds.
Oh.
Yeah. What do you think the score is going to be? The Bills versus the Cardinals. How many points are the Bills going to score?
50-100.
50-100? That
Breaking
is
records.
crazy. Say hi to Ryan.
Hi.
Say, see you
Hi.
soon.
See you soon.
Take care, everybody.
Right.